to Ceiling Shattering Tactics. We are here to elevate, innovate, and disrupt executive leadership by digging into the tactics and tools that have helped transformative entrepreneurs and leaders get to where they are today. Joining us is Pascale Joseph. Pascale, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Tamara. I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So the reason that you are here is because you are the founder of Equity Through Liberation, an organization leading with empathy, authenticity, and vulnerability, ensuring that people have the resources to thrive, not just surviving their day-to-day by providing them essential training and coaching. I absolutely love this, and I love authenticity. So tell us, what is your ceiling shattering tactic?
I would say my ceiling shattering tactic is to really commit to being your authentic self. Early on in my career, and even before I started my career, since childhood, one of the things that has really guided my growth early on was the things that people told me that I should do or who I should be and the dreams that I should have. And I didn't know any better when I was younger, and I went along that path. I did what was expected of me, what I was told to do, and I experienced such a significant amount of tension as I started coming into myself and discovering who I was and my voice. And it really came to a head early on in my career when I was just faced with so many challenges being a Black woman in a predominantly white male industry like architecture and engineering, and facing daily microaggressions and feeling like I couldn't speak up for myself. And I reached a point where I had it, and I called out quite a few issues, and I felt so much relief in just committing to my expectations for organizations. And from there, I realized that why am I silencing myself so that other people can be comfortable? I'm not growing, they're not growing, and ultimately I'm doing myself and people who come in after me a considerable amount of harm. So I started being very vocal. I started inserting myself in conversations, even though I may not have necessarily received a welcome into that conversation. I still made it a point to be there. I still made it a point to make sure that there were empty seats for other people that I felt should be there as well. And by doing that, I started having more opportunities that aligned with who I am and what I wanted to do. And I started out in architecture, and now I find myself in the space of coaching and DEIB and people and culture, and I love it.
That's amazing. And here, this is my question though, because I often think about this, right? Especially when finding your voice. Like, how do you know you're being your authentic self? How do you come to that place where you go, you know what, this is really me, and this is what I want to say? And I have to say, like, even now, I go, well, what am I trying to say? What is important that I get out there? So are there questions you ask yourself to get to the bottom of this? How do you give me a strategy? What do I do if I say, I don't know that I'm being my authentic self? What do I do?
Definitely. So for me, there are times when you have to respond in the moment, and there are times where you have a chance to really think through your response. And I always make sure that I'm checking, just doing a body check of just, if I'm in a conversation and something doesn't feel right, do I feel guilty afterwards for either my action or inaction? Or what I say, does it leave me feeling guilty? Do I feel like I didn't actually say enough? Do I feel like I harmed someone else in the process of what I said? So just for example, there have been times early on in my career where, of course, you're just starting out, you're entry level, and you feel afraid to speak out, especially if you're faced with a manager who may do or say problematic things, because retaliation is real. And if you're in a company where the culture is you have to have a sense of humor, and that sense of humor then excuses inappropriate behavior, in that situation with a manager who's more senior than you and you don't address the problematicness, I've walked away from conversations feeling disappointed in myself, guilty, feeling really upset that I just didn't do anything or didn't say anything, or at least even just kind of look around the room to see how everyone else is responding. I just very much so retreat. And those early experiences of feeling that full body response of just like turning into myself and retreating and hiding and feeling guilty was really what helped me craft how to respond in the moment as well. So typically what I'll do is just take a moment, think about the goal that I want to have and the outcome and the impact. Sometimes it's really just, I want you to know that what you did was inappropriate. And sometimes it's just, let's unpack this, let's learn from this. And then I craft my response from there. And typically what I found is because I actually said something, I end up feeling so much better. And I think that's what people have to start thinking about is just, you feel worse whenever you don't do what you know you should do.
So you're very reflective about your feelings through the day in order to then put into place how you will respond and take action. Now, I know you've said that this has been transformative in your career because it's actually allowed you to pursue jobs that you would have otherwise talked yourself out of. Explain to me how being authentic to yourself, reflecting on your feelings, using those feelings has transformed career trajectory.
Definitely. I think throughout my job searches, whenever I found myself ready to transition to another opportunity, I always try to control the feeling of desperation. So especially if I really want to get out of a situation where it's such a toxic environment, my mental, emotional, and physical health is just deteriorating. I just need to get out of there fast. But then also, if I do that and not strategize about finding the right place next, I'm going to repeat being in another organization that may not serve me, that may not provide me with the growth that I want, that may not provide me with the ability to show my power, to develop my authority, to develop my voice. So what I started doing was asking difficult questions of my interviewers based off of my past experiences. And especially when it comes to speaking to BIPOC women who are in positions of leadership, I've asked, do you feel supported? Especially when it comes to being able to show up in your full identity. Do you feel that the organization has a lot of work to do when it comes to being culturally competent and aware? Do you feel that the organization is inclusive? What has been the biggest barriers when you find yourself in a room and you're trying to speak? Do you feel like people make room and amplify your voice, or do you feel like you're silenced? There are organizations where even I've interviewed and they've shared with me some of their tactics, and I'm like, is that really the best way that you think you should go about this? And really providing some feedback as well. Because I developed this perspective of just like, it's not just you interviewing me, I'm interviewing you as you too. And quite frankly, I've come to a point of confidence where I will be perfectly okay if an organization feels like I'm being too candid in my questions, or being too forward, or acknowledging too many challenges. Then that means that you're not the place for me. Because if you are not willing to acknowledge the places that you need to grow, that means that the environment that you're providing for your employees might not be the most successful environment. So asking those hard questions, sometimes I get rejections because I've asked those hard questions, but at the end of the day, it's been necessary because I found the managers who agree. I found those managers who welcome my candidness, those managers who understand that in order to grow, you have to be uncomfortable. And it's worked out for me quite a bit.
Have you ever had to make a hard decision to walk away from an offer because of that? And how do you feel about it afterwards?
I walked away from an offer for an organization that I really wanted to work with because they were offering a salary that was significantly below what I felt I was worth. And when I did quite a bit of research about what folks within that organization were currently being paid, I didn't quite understand why there was this significant six-figure salary for their executive director And then you had people who were in senior manager positions who are being paid $50,000. And I'm like, that doesn't really make sense to me. And then your justification is, well, we have budget constraints. And I'm like, well, I think you need to review your budgets, because if you could pay your ED $300,000, you could definitely figure out how to pay some of your on the ground individual contributors a bit more. And even though I just love the work that they were doing, I really wanted to be involved. Ultimately, I was not about to let myself be so significantly undervalued. And I shared that feedback with them, that they should look at their compensation structure and figure out a way to, if it can't be tomorrow, which I understand it can't be, in the long term, how can you make sure that you're doing better and not just providing people with a living wage, but a thriving wage?
Amazing. Amazing. I love this thread. Being your authentic self by finding and looking at your feelings, and then how that just transforms your future feelings, right? Because it's all a path. It all connects.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Well, I want to turn it over to Anne to ask you our Dear Future Disruptor questions.
Hi, Pascale. Thank you so much for sharing with your tactic with us. I think oftentimes I ask myself, when I meet someone new, or if I'm taking on a new opportunity, if I'm being my authentic self. And that's something I question so much. And I feel like we always have these masks on that we think are protecting us and putting up these barriers, but in the end, they're actually harming us. And I love how you're asking these difficult questions and really getting to how can you improve and grow yourself, and what do you really want in the future? So I'm going to be asking you 2 quick questions, and you can feel free to answer them as in-depth as you'd like. So the first question is, what is one decision you made that has changed the trajectory of your life?
First decision I made that changed the trajectory was being honest about my chosen major in undergrad. Growing up, my parents, like so many parents, aspired for their children to be doctors or lawyers. And that was pretty much the dream that I was told that I was going to achieve, was you're going to be a doctor. So I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to be a doctor. That's fine. I got to undergrad and got the first F in my whole life in biology. I'll never forget it. I'm a failure. I can't do this. I keep pretending and I keep telling everybody I want to be a doctor, but deep down I knew that wasn't what I wanted to be. And compared to all of my siblings, I was the artistic one. I loved writing poetry. I always drew. I had an uncle who was studying to be an architect, and I would sometimes take some of his material so I could secretly build models myself. And architecture was what I really wanted. And I secretly declared my major, and keeping it a secret, I felt like was just slowly just destroying me, because I couldn't share when I got my first A in my architecture class. I couldn't share the feedback that I got from professors about models that I was building because no one knew. So I finally told my parents, I was like, I want to be an architect. And at first there was not as much support as I would have wanted. And a lot of that was grounded in just fear of me being a woman and being successful in the field of architecture. And I think as I steadily showed my parents that she's like, I can do this. I'm going to do this regardless of how you feel. Let's hop on board, because at the end of the day, I don't want other women or girls or Black folk to feel like they can't do something because of just societal norms or historical context. And ultimately, I think my advice is, even if you feel like you're not going to have support on the front end, still pursue your dreams. Even if you feel like someone's going to tell you to give up, do not add your voice to that chorus. At the end of the day, you don't know what your life will look like in the long term, and you'll still be so happy that you made the decision.
I think that's so amazing, because I know growing up, there's so many different opinions being thrown at you. And when I was younger, I thought that I wanted to be like a doctor or a lawyer too, but ultimately my passion was going to art. So that's why I'm studying media studies right now. I think that's so amazing. My second question is, what are some resources you would suggest for new leaders?
Resources that I would suggest are definitely looking at fellowships that provide you with an opportunity to, if you discover that you're in one industry and you want to pivot, look at fellowships that provide you with the resources to pivot. And it's not just, I'm going to train you on this particular skill set, but I'm also going to provide you with access to this network where if you want a job, here are all these people that we know who are hiring. Let me make an introduction so that you can get in the door. I recently completed a fellowship with On Deck, which is focused on, the fellowship was First 50, which was focused on hiring the first 50 folks for startups. And the structure of the program was you went through all of these different trainings, you have access to this huge network of other fellows, and they have several different programs too. But startups came and pitched to you about why you should join their team. And I thought that framework is just so great and so fascinating to me that because of the breadth of different fellowships that On Deck has, I highly recommend that people check them out.
I think that's amazing, like letting opportunities come to you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for sharing. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. And so our last question, we want to make sure that we're following your incredible work. Can you let us know one thing that you're doing right now that you're excited about that we can share with our community?
Definitely. I think one thing that I'm just the most excited about right now is working on my PhD. I am attending Robert Morris University in their program for instructional management and leadership. And I'm delving deeper into the topic of my dissertation, which is exploring legacy and understanding how the things that you learned growing up, whether it's filial expectations, societal norms, or cultural expectations, how they contribute to your perception of self. And I'm particularly looking at women descendants of the diaspora. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to actually write the dissertation, even though it's a lot of work. But the closer I get to the finish line, I think the more I feel like I'm where I need to be. I meant to be. I think there's something wrong with your audio.
We can't hear you, Tamara.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. How can other people follow your work and what you're doing?
Definitely. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can also access my website, www.equityxliberation.org. One of the things that I'm doing is also working on facilitation and training and coaching as well. So if you ever have any inquiries, need any workshops, I could be found through my website.
Amazing. Amazing. We're so excited for what you're doing. And thank you so much for taking time to share your ceiling shattering tactic. Okay, that is it for this week's Ceiling Shattering Tactics. If you would like more insight into the toolboxes of influential female leaders, such as Pascale, follow Mind the Ceiling on social media to get the latest updates. See you all next week.